All right, what's up, guys, and welcome to the Fancast Live podcast. I'm your host, John Carlo. On today's show, I've got a special guest. His name is Marc. He's from Mets Fans United, and like myself, he's a suffering but passionate and loyal Mets fan. Marc is very outspoken when it comes to the Mets ownership, the front office, the product they put on the field, the success or lack thereof of the team, and the fan perception. Welcome to the show, Marc. I appreciate you taking some time to be with me today. How about we just get the show started off by giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself. Tell us something about Mets Fans United, how it started, and why.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show. Very honored and very privileged to be able to be on with you today. Mets Fan United is found on the basis that we feel that the Mets fans, being as passionate as we are, really want to have a voice at the table. So back a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, myself and a couple others, we started Mets Fans United. We could be found on Twitter at Mets Fans United 1. That's Mets Fans United 1 on Twitter. And, it's on the basis that, we don't really care who ownership is, even though we obviously have not really, like most, thought that the Wilpons have been someone, the group with Saul Katz have not been really, the best owners because of the lack of competence more than anything. So what we talk about is not, the fans want to do it great, but we don't advocate for boycotts. That's a really big misconception. But it's more so for the fact of we want competence and we want a seat at the table to be able to voice our thoughts towards owners rather than just say, hey, we're not going to games, we're not going to watch. We're all big fans. We don't want to tell people how to be a fan or what to do. We just want to really have a seat at the table and represent really all Met fans and have Met fans voice their thoughts and concerns to us.
Right. So, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Oh, and personally, we try and keep our personal, our personal opinions out of Mets Fans United to represent the whole. So my own personal Twitter page is No More Wilpons, NOMORE Wilpons on Twitter. And I don't know, maybe I'll keep it, in the next 5 years, maybe I won't. Not really sure what I'm going to do. I never thought that I'd actually live the day to see, No More Wilpons, actually, something that I created, the handle back in July of 2010. It's been
something we never thought was ever going to happen, right?
Right, exactly. Like most Met fans, right?
Right. All right, so we know a lot about Fred Wilpon. Obviously, he purchased the 1% stake in the Mets back in 1980. In '86, he and Nelson Doubleday purchased the Mets from the Payson family. They won the World Series that year. I think they purchased a team for about $81 million then.
Yeah.
In 2002, the Wilpons bought out Nelson Doubleday for approximately $391 million. Then you had the Ponzi scheme that, the big scandal back in 2008 where the Wilpons were investors who had invested a significant amount of money with the Bernie Madoff, which was lost, there was a lot of money lost in the Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
It was believed that the Wilpons earned about $300 million in that Ponzi scheme. It was later revealed that the Wilpons utilized that Ponzi scheme to run the operations of the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Because pretty much, we all saw the Wilpons as not big spenders, but when they did have that money, they did throw some money at, back then it was Carlos Beltran, it was
Baccato.
Yeah, exactly. So they did spend some kind of money, and now we know that at that time, this was the money that they were using to make the purchases that they were making to operate the team and so on and so forth. And I believe, from what I understand, they also used that money to purchase the SNY network.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of things that really went well for the Wilpons when they had that money. But once they lost that money, it became a totally different thing. The Wilpons just didn't spend money. They were always in debt. I believed for a long time that the Wilpons were using they were losing a lot of money because, well, actually, the last couple of years, I think they said they lost $120 million. I don't know how that's possible.
Yeah, in the last 2 years, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact is I feel that the Wilpons probably have debt somewhere else, personal debt, or whether it's their Sterling Enterprise debt that they were probably applying to the team's books or whatever the case may be. There's got to be something not right there.
Yeah.
But going back to Madoff, I always believed that's the reason why the Wilpons were able to spend so much money. And then once that money was gone, it was that money just wasn't being spent. Baseball, we know, had to lend them $25 million. Then we know that there was that $40 million that they borrowed from Bank of America, which was at the time when Major League Baseball was about to step in and take over the team because they felt the Wilpons weren't going to be able to handle the operations. And we were all like really crossing our fingers at that point because we were hoping that baseball would take the team, and sell it to someone else. But that didn't quite come to fruition because they ended up getting that loan from Bank of America for $40 million. They ended up paying off their debts, and somehow, some way, they were able to hang on to the team.
Well, let me just chime in, there.
Go ahead.
A big way that they were able to do that is because they weren't really spending money on the team, and they were budgeting to be able to pay off some of the debts.
Right.
That being said, a lot of how and why they were spending money before the Madoff, Ponzi scheme got revealed was they were going based upon a 15% interest rate in which they were going to be able to always have liquidity, always be able to play the payroll with that. Right. I mean, that's what they based the whole Bobby Bonilla, whole fiasco over was, we're going to be able to pay Bonilla, a 15% interest rate, given the 1.8 or whatever $1 million it is every July 1st, that makes, not only the Mets, but also the fan base look like complete morons until 2039. So, that's really how they were paying off the players, assuming that they were going to get that interest rate forever since it was a guarantee because Bernie Madoff said so.
Right.
So that's really how they were doing that.
Right.
Yeah. And getting players like Delgado and Yohan and Beltran and so forth.
Right. Then in January of 2011, they started selling off portions of the team to to investors who were interested, and Steve Cohen just happened to be one of those investors who bought a 4% share of the team in 2011 or 2012, whenever it was. And then, from what I understand, he also bought an additional 4% later on. I'm not quite sure exactly when he did that, but he did. I think he has an 8% stake in the team. Then the news broke this week that Steve Cohen, who is a minority owner in the team, is looking to purchase a majority ownership of the team. From what we understand, it's going to be 80%. It might be less. It might be more. We're hoping it's a total 100%, but then you have to consider the other investors who have bought small stakes in the team. So, and this all came out this week because of the fact that there's been some feud within the family with Saul Katz, and the fact that a lot of people in the family aren't comfortable with Jeff Wilpon eventually taking over the team when Papa Smurf, Fred Wilpon, is no longer going to be around. I mean, Fred Wilpon is 83 years old, and we're assuming that the 5 years that Steve Cohen is giving the Wilpons to hold on to the team after this is finalized is I mean, he's going to be 88 years old at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, he could or could not be here anymore, but I mean, this is an exciting time for us Mets fans because we've been you and myself and many other Mets fans have been rooting for the Wilpons to sell the team because we just feel like this is a big market. Big money can be made here. The fans are very passionate about their team. They're very loyal, and just because the ownership says that they're loyal and they're passionate about the team, but the fact of the matter is you're not spending money to and it's not evident that you're passionate and loyal and want to win. So this is where we're at now as far as team ownership is, and there's a lot of excitement right now. What do you think, and how do you feel in what direction you think Steve Cohen is going to bring the New York Mets.
Well, I mean, the first, it's pretty obvious. He has quite the backing from a financial perspective. But I think even more so than that, what I'm really looking forward to is you could spend all the money in the world. You could have all the money in the world. But, I mean, like another team in this town, like the Knicks, who spend money, they don't do so very competently. So really what I'm looking forward to most, to answer your question, is bring more competency to the team, to the organization. Because when you look at the ways that they're ran, I mean, whether or not in the past it's been sending out a very something that just really still bothers me to this day, a fan oath to your fans, looking for them to be loyal. I mean, come on. I mean, the Mets just aren't ran like a New York team should be ran. Right. They're not ran with competency. They're not ran with, like when do you see the Mets making these shrewd moves like the Tampa Bay Rays move, make, they don't make moves like that. They never get a player where you're like, wow, like this player was nothing on this team, but on the Mets, he turned into this great player. I mean, when was the last time we had our Justin Turner? I mean, seriously. I mean, like, we don't have that.
We've had a lot of Justin Turners go somewhere else. And,
exactly.
It's just ridiculous, yeah.
But they don't come to us. And so Stephen Cohen, what he's going to bring to the table is he's built a business. He's built a business that has excelled. He doesn't take losing very well, which is what I want in ownership. Not only spending money, yes, but he's going to put the resources not only to the major league team, but he's going to do that towards scouting, towards analytics, towards overseas in the Dominican, towards the Dominican, team that we have, or the, the facilities. He's going to put it to the minor leagues. He's going to put it all across the board. He's going to want the best of the best to work for him, to bring a championship back to Queens. And so that's what that's what I'm looking forward to, is the winning mentality. I mean, yeah, you can say that you want to win, but New Yorkers, we don't want to, we don't want to hear the talk. Yeah. We want to see you walk the walk, and we want you to show us.
Yeah, we want to see the results. Exactly.
Exactly. And the Wilpons the Wilpons, are not result driven. They want to talk about it, but yeah, that's great. Like, we want to see it. And so, I'm actually really looking forward to, I'm definitely not a season ticket holder. I haven't gone to nearly as many games that I used to go to, but I know that a lot of season ticket holders, they're used to going to a event in about January, another month and change from now, where they get invited by the Mets to ask questions to the ownership. I wonder if they're going to have it this year, or if they're even going to do it this year, or if that'll be kind of the first introduction to everyone to Stephen Cohen.
Yeah, that would be definitely interesting to find out if they're going to have that, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fans there that's going to be asking a lot of questions, whether it's still Steve Cohen or the Wilpons still, running the team.
And I'm sure with the news that recently came out, a lot of questions won't be overly nice, or the layups that they typically get.
Yeah, there won't be any runaround.
Right.
Steve Cohen, I didn't know anything about Steve Cohen up until the news broke this week. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of research on him. He's worth something about $16.3 billion. Some say he's worth a little less than $10 billion.
Yeah, his range is about $9 to $13 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's a very rich person. He's from New York. He's a loyal Mets fan. He's been a Mets fan his entire life. I think he lives out on the island somewhere.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of what I've read this week, and a lot of the things I've heard, whether it's on a podcast or on the news or SNY or whatever the case may be, everybody speaks very positively of Steve Cohen because they feel that he's going to go deep into his pockets. And like you said, he is going to invest his time and his money and put it where his mouth is, because the Mets are due for an overhaul. I mean, it's quite evident. We've been waiting around. The product on the field just has not been what a New York market team should look like. I mean, granted, we have a lot of young players right now. You have your Alonso, your Mcneil, your J.D. Davis, your Dom Smiths, your Confortos, your Nimos. They're all fantastic players. Now, it's a matter of what's going to happen to some of those players because of whether they fit on this club or not. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But there's a nucleus to this team now that we feel that this, front office ownership needs to take the next step to, add to the product that's already on the field now to make it
Right.
better so that we can compete with the Philadelphia Phillies, who went and got a Joe Girardi, just signed, Zack Wheeler from us. They're talking about, possibly signing Strasburg and or Rendon. I mean, these guys, they signed Harper last year. They're throwing money around like crazy, and we're sitting here, we're scratching our heads and saying, what the hell is going on here? How are the Philadelphia Phillies spending all this money? And we're in New York, and we can't get this. The Atlanta Braves went and improved as well. They went and signed Cole Hamels. They're looking at a couple of possibilities at third base if Josh Donaldson doesn't sign. They've gotten better. They got Will Smith to go to the bullpen, one of the best relievers in the game. I mean, we could talk about this all day, and we sit here and we read the reports, we see what's going on, and every day I scratch my head and say, why can't this be us? Why can't this be the New York Mets? Why can't we, for once, laugh at our division rivals and say, ha, 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 we've got the guy we wanted? But that's never the case, and it's so frustrating to be a Mets fan and think that the only championship we have is 1986, and that's over 30 years ago. And, we went to the World Series in 2000 against the Yankees and got whooped 4-1, and then we lost to the Kansas City Royals. We made 2 appearances in the World Series, yes, but we didn't win. And the fact of the matter is, we go to the playoffs, we go to the World Series, and then we take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years off before we make another appearance in the playoffs. I mean, what are your feelings about that?
Well, my whole thing is, I want to touch on a couple of things that you said. Number one is, we went to the World Series in 73,
right,
and then in 86. That's 13 years. We went to the World Series from 86 to 2000, 14 years. And then 2000 to 2015, 15 years. Mm-hmm. So, I think if you do the math right, that means we're due to go to the World Series in 2031 again. Right. I don't really want to wait that long, personally. And so, more than anything, to your point, though, we got to the World Series and lost in 5 games in 2000 and 2015. But more so than what anyone, I think, really wants is, besides the championship, obviously, we want to have that time period where we have sustainability, right, where we have that time period where we walk into a season and we're like, okay, great, we're the Mets, we're going to be in first place, a team to be proud of. We haven't had that. I guess in 2006 and 2007, 2008, we might have been somewhat close to that. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of been a small glimpse of hope in really all the years.
Right.
And I think that a big part of why you're getting or an answer a question why we don't let other teams in our division and why we aren't getting the players is because, just like what came out this past week, the Mets are up to their eyeballs in debt. They're not able to go out and just get players and sign these big player names. They're not able to do that because of where they're at as far as paying off loans to baseball. They can't even come up with the money to pay the Islanders for their stadium, let alone sign a Rendon for $200+ million.
Right.
That's going to go to the real estate project instead.
Yeah.
So, these are all reasons why you're not seeing that. And until Stephen Cohen comes in here, you're not going to see it. We're going to have to settle for the Merzniks of the world. That's just really the way that it is. And that's the reality, unfortunately. But I think that can happen really sooner than later, because the 5-year, that's really just a namesake only. Mm-hmm. Because then, 5 years, that's more for bookkeeping than anything, for the 5-year look back in estate planning. And that's a big part of what the Wilpons are trying to do here. But there's no way that you're going to see, Stephen Cohen come in here and settle for this nonsense as a majority owner, putting his name on the door and putting his name on the team to have to settle for this. There's no way it's going to happen. So I think we're going to know pretty strongly exactly when Steve Cohen's money is going to be funneling through the door, because we're going to see that big name player that we would know would never get signed. That's going to get signed. And then we're going to all celebrate and be like, you know what? Stephen Cohen era is finally here.
Yep.
And then we can actually say, come get us.
Exactly. It's funny because we heard and read the reports this week that the Mets lost $120 million in the last 2 years. And then news started to break that after arbitration is all said and done, the Mets could possibly be over the luxury tax threshold. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how the hell do we get over the luxury tax threshold? I think our salary has been on average about $150, $160 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, there's some players that are probably going to get some big arbitration increases. I know Edwin Diaz, who you remember last year we got in that trade with Robinson Cano. He made $680,000 last year in arbitration. They're saying that he's probably going to get somewhere in the vicinity of $6 million increase.
I've even heard to about $9 million.
How is that even remotely possible, though? How do you go from $680,000 in arbitration and go to $7+ million?
Well, it definitely isn't based upon performance. I can tell you that much. Because if it was based upon performance, he'd be, instead of making $600,000, he'd be making about $6.
Well, if we're going to base it on his performance last year, then I don't think he should get a $7 million increase. I mean, come on.
Well,
I couldn't believe it because when I saw that, I started saying, I started posting. I started saying, get rid of Edwin Diaz. Why are we going to pay him $7+ million for 2020 if this was supposed to be a trade that was supposed to save us money in the short term because of the fact that you have him under team control for 5 years. That's
never going to happen though, because that's going to basically be a admission of guilt to our genius GM that we got, Bertie Van Wagenen, admitting that he royally screwed up, this whole trade that should never have happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, and not for anything, but I mean, what made this week, this week will always be special. But I mean, the Mets even almost try to ruin this week by leaking out that they were even interested in getting Josh Hader and Ryan Braun because they want to take on another big contract from another PED guy.
Yeah.
And on top of that, take on for a closer. How about this? It can't happen because we don't have any money.
Right.
But a competent team and someone who has all their ducks in a row would go out and just sign another reliever. Like, what about that? To me, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You have nothing. You have nothing to trade like this. All these trade rumors that come about. I know they went and got Marisnik this week. They gave up two. I wouldn't call them prospects because there's a difference between prospects and minor leaguers.
Yeah.
They weren't prospects. He didn't really give too much up. He did sign two minor leaguers, 2 minor league deals with invites to spring training this week. I'm assuming those signings were to make up for the debt that he just lost, the depth that he just lost. But it's not news to me. I mean, this is something that happens every season that, for teams to just, throw players in the farm, in the system just to make up for depth. But the Josh Hader thing, I just really didn't understand, especially when I heard that Braun was going to be part of the deal. And I'm saying to myself, this is just another, Robinson Cano, Edwin Diaz deal in the making.
Exactly.
You're going to take, how many years does Braun have left? I believe he's got 1 year left. Does he have 1 year left?
No, I think he has more than that. I'll actually check.
So we were just going to get another Robinson Cano. I really wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was a 1 year deal because there were reports saying that this was like a salary dump, that he was going to come off the books next year, and so was, Yoenis Cespedes and so on and so forth. But I haven't confirmed or denied that, so I don't know what the story is with that. But as far, since we're on the subject of the front office, Brodie Van Wagenen, when he first got hired, I thought very highly of him. Very well spoken. He sounded like he knew what he was talking about. He's very analytics driven because he is an agent. That's what agents do. I have to be honest with you. When he made this deal for Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz, I thought on paper this was a great deal. I was like, we're getting an all-star second baseman, even though we had one in place, because we felt that after what Jeff Mcneil did the year prior, we felt that he was going to be our future second baseman. And I somewhat kind of disagree with the deal because, my bias towards Jeff Mcneil. I love the kid. He's great. I thought he was going to be a great second baseman, and then Robinson Cano happens. So now you're throwing this kid around all over the place, third base, second base, outfield, so on and so forth. You did the same thing with J.D. Davis. Dom Smith was another player who, under Sandy Olson, to me, Sandy Olson pretty much gave up on Dom Smith. Once
No, of course.
once he did once he had that situation where he overslept and didn't show up for a team meeting that morning, it was pretty much a done deal for Dom Smith. He was finished as a New York Met. But once Sandy Olson left, because of health reasons, and Brody Van Wagenen took over, Dom Smith got a second chance and he proved himself. And I'm happy for him. Although I feel that he's got he's not a good fit for this team, because Alonso is now your future first baseman.
Yeah.
You're not taking his job. He could be a bench player, and he could be a good one too, because he's got a good bat, and he's a left-handed bat, and you can use him off the bench, but he's got a little more value than I think people perceive him to have. I think they can deal him for starting pitcher or a reliever or something.
Yeah.
But then the thing is what do you do with J.D. Davis next year? What do you do with Jeff? I mean, Jeff McNeil is probably going to end up at third base. J.D. Davis, I think, is going to be another trade option. But throwing J.D. Davis in a deal for for Josh Hader and Braun just to get rid of salary is just a completely foolish thing to do, because it just doesn't make sense. You're helping the other team. You're not helping yourself, because you're giving away talent, and you're taking back, a Braun who's, in my opinion, he's done. He's finished. He's just another Robinson Cano. And there's a lot of things that Brody Van Wagenen has done since that trade that just doesn't make sense to me. Bringing back Familia,
a lot.
At first, again, I'm not gonna deny the fact that I thought it was a good deal for 3 years at $10 million, a year. I didn't think it was a bad deal. Again, we didn't think that Diaz and Familia were going to come in here and just flop. It just wasn't expected. Yeah. And now the expectation this year is with the players that he's looking at this year, with Josh Hader and all the other relievers, the Rule 5 draft guys, or I'm sorry, not the Rule 5, the non-tendered players that they're looking at. Treinen, I think, was one of them.
Yeah.
It's just like you want to create depth, yes, you want to improve, but what are you going to do with the players you already have? You can't do anything with them.
A big part of it, though, is I kind of felt the same way with you regarding Familia, and I'm going to go out on the record right now, and I haven't said this before, so I'm breaking my opinion on your show. Is I think that Familia is going to actually turn around next year. Do I think he's going to be a stud reliever? I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's going to turn around, so he'll at least be serviceable.
Right.
It won't be a complete embarrassment.
We can only hope.
Right, because to me, I think that Familia has much better stuff. And for one reason or another, I think that we heard this from a lot of people. It's not an excuse; it's more of a fact about the ball. The ball was just different. So I'm looking for a rebound from both Familia and from Diaz. Again, not saying they're going to be either one is going to be this all-star reliever, but I think they'll both be serviceable next year. That being said, just to kind of hit on the point that we were talking about before, Ryan Braun is signed for this year for $17 million coming up in 2020, and then in 2021, $15 million, and then he's a free agent. So we'll be taking on about $32 million over the next 2 years for Ryan Braun. I wasn't for the Cano deal or the Diaz deal, whatever you want to call it, because to me, the Mets always kick the can down the curb, and that's what the deal is all about. Right. It was all about just kicking salary down the curb because of where they were at as far as the leverage and where they're still at as far as leverage and debt goes. So yeah, I think that we need to develop more depth, and we have some issues on our team that aren't getting addressed. To your point, J.D. Davis is a guy where in the right deal I would move him, but if it helps to benefit us, I'm not trading for salary relief. Right. I don't think Cohen's going to be the kind of guy who's going to take well towards that, because he wants the best of the best on his team, and he doesn't want to help others. Right. He wants to help himself. Right. And he wants to help his own organization. So I'm not sure if that's going to really happen ultimately. But yeah, Dominic Smith, totally agree with you. He has some trade value. I don't really know if we could get a impact difference maker bullpen guy, a middle inning guy for just Dominic Smith though. We'd probably have to package him with someone else to get really that difference maker. But certainly we definitely need that. And yeah, Jeff McNeil, I mean, the guy has to play every day, play him at third base every day. I I always it's synonymous with saying Jeff McNeil in third base, with Mickey Callaway not realizing that he ever played third base before when he made those comments saying that he was a second baseman.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one of many examples of how our team is inept, or has been inept and incompetent in the past. So yeah, I mean, Mcneil has to play every day. Alonso obviously has first base lockdown. There's not really a spot for Dominic Smith. So if we get something for him, preferably, a middle reliever of some value, then I'd be okay with parting ways with Dominic Smith.
Yeah, a lot of question marks going into the GM meetings. The winter meetings coming up tomorrow, starting tomorrow in San Diego. I mean, there's a lot of question marks with the Mets, especially when we talk about Brodie Van Wagenen and what he's going to do to improve this ball club for 2020. Mm-hmm. But the thing is there's one particular player that no one speaks of. Yeah. He's still part of this team, and he's still got another year left on his contract. And he made an appearance, I think, on Instagram, was it last week, where he was seen hitting batting practice with Endy Chavez.
Yeah.
Yoenis Cespedes. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say Jed Lowry. I was like,
have you seen him lately?
Instagram? Yeah, you made an appearance somewhere?
Oh, my God.
Out of the witness protection program?
Quite possibly, because he's been rumored in some trade talk too, and
Yeah, I mean, he has so much value, I mean, after making those.
I tell you, I mean, if when he came back last year and had he played well, even though he only got not even a month, if he would have at least hit, I don't think he ended the season with a hit. I don't think he had a hit.
No, he didn't.
He didn't, right?
He had about 9 at bats without a hit. And I mean, as I'm watching him, like last year with his big helmet on, wondering, I'm like, is this like David Wright's clone? Because I mean, and I don't mean to like joke around about it, and I don't mean to be kind of funny about it, but it just what I was thinking, and I'm going to be honest with my thoughts, is I remember going to the last game that David Wright played in, and I mean, I was sad. I wasn't sad because it was his last game. I was sad because he didn't look anything like himself. He looked like a stick. He looked like he didn't eat in a year.
Right.
And that's what Jed Lowry looked like. He just looked like he was a stick, and he just didn't look healthy. And so that's pretty, to me, that's pretty disconcerting. If you have someone that's looking like David Wright out there, who is supposed to be someone who has played shortstop in the past, or even someone you want to have quick reaction at third base. So to me, I don't understand how Jed Lowry's name even gets brought up in any types of trade talks, because what value does he have? I mean, maybe I'd give the Mets like a chicken burrito or a Mexi from Taco Bell or something for him, or maybe a Big Mac. That's about all the value to me that I think he has.
The only value Jed Lowry has right now is a $10 million. No, not even a $10 million contract. I think he's got a $9 million contract for 2020. He's got 1 year left, and I thought that with the opening in Milwaukee, now that Moustakas went on to sign with who did he sign with? I forget who he signed with.
He signed
the Cincinnati
with
Reds.
With
the Cincinnati Reds. Mm-hmm. I thought with the third base opening there that Brodie Van Wagenen might be able to push Jed Lowry onto the Milwaukee Brewers, but they didn't bite. But going back to Yoenis Cespedes, so he shows up on a video with Endy Chavez taking batting practice. The video was taken down from Instagram soon after it was posted. No idea why. And I'm looking for this video because I wanted to show it to a couple of friends, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I'm like, what the hell happened to it? And then it turns out there were reports saying that it was taken down. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we've seen him taking batting practice. We haven't seen him run. Mm-hmm. Why isn't the front office telling their fans, listen, Yoenis Cespedes might be able to play in 2020, but we don't really know when. Is he going to be ready for spring training? Is he not going to be ready? I think we should be able to know this information, because that changes a lot of things. If Yoenis Cespedes is going to be healthy, because he's going to be making $28.5 million in 2020, and if he's healthy enough to play, I want him in left field because he's a good bat. Not necessarily going to be the best defensive player because he probably can't run for crap, but I'd rather have him in left field than a J.D. Davis, a Dom Smith, or a Jeff McNeil.
Yeah.
All right. Do you agree?
I mean, yeah, I agree, but I mean, the reason why it was taken down so quickly is 2 words for you: insurance fraud. Yeah. Is is he has more value to the Mets if he doesn't play, simply because of the fact that the Mets don't have to pay him the insurance money.
Right.
That's the reason we're not going to see him this year. I mean, who's kidding who? Because if the Mets don't play him, they save all this money that can go towards paying down their debt instead of trying to actually win. That's the way the Mets are ran. The Mets are also ran because they're not going to communicate saying that he might play or he may not play. The Mets are incompetent because they don't know themselves if he could play. The Mets are incompetent that they let him fall into a ditch somewhere in his ranch or something, which I think doesn't make any sense either.
It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. But this is the nonsense and the crap you hear under the current regime as to why we're so excited to get another regime out here. Because Cespedes, in my opinion, is not going to play. He's never going to be ready for spring training. And the Mets wound that down right away because they don't want people to see that he can actually hit the ball. Because not for anything, if you're actually trying to win, which I'm not sure, like the Mets want to win, they don't want to do whatever it takes to win. Based upon what we saw there, why can't Cespedes at least pinch hit?
Right.
And start the season that way on the bench? It's not going to happen.
No.
But I mean, I'd rather have his bench, and he, on the bench, he could jog to first base. I mean, the guy can't jog a little bit. I mean, he runs like he jogs anyway. So I mean, you can't count on anything from Cespedes this year. You just can't do it. If Cespedes plays, that's a bonus. That's like acquiring someone at the trade deadline, because you just can't count on Cespedes this year. The Mets are too much. I mean, and maybe I'm just very jaded with my thoughts with the Mets and overly pessimistic because I've been accused of that a few times, but I'm just trying to be realistic that Cespedes isn't going to play, and that's the way the Mets are ran.
Well, the way they're going about their business right now, it seems that way, and it's being perceived that way. I was just if not the beginning of the year, I was hoping at least at the All-Star break that he come back healthy and contribute to the team because I mean, quite frankly, the Mets could definitely use his bat. With we don't know what's going to happen with J.D. Davis. We don't know what's going to happen with Dom Smith. We know for sure that Jeff McNeil is either going to be in left field or he's going to be at third base. We know that the Mets don't feel J.D. Davis can handle the third base duties because they feel his defensive skills aren't as good as those of Jeff McNeil. A lot of times when J.D. Davis was playing last year, I know I've noticed it. I know a lot of people on TV and the analysts doing the game, Cohen and Hernandez and Darling, noticed it many times that J.D. Davis playing third base, he would take a ground ball and he would step, throw to first base, and barely getting the runner at first base. That to them was an issue. That was something that was brought to fruition, and they they confronted him about it. He feels that his position is third base. He wants to play third base, but I think Jeff McNeil is the better third baseman.
Right.
But even if the Mets don't make any moves to where they move Davis or Smith, I'm okay with them being on the roster as bench players because you ultimately have probably the best depth in most of baseball. You're going to be able to feel comfortable to call upon guys like J.D. Davis, Dom Smith, or whoever else is on the bench to come to bat as a pinch hitter or come in late in games as a defensive replacement or, play a game for an injured player. You're going to feel comfortable with putting them in the lineup. Whereas opposed to, Guillorme or, this kid that they called up late last season where he did nothing but pinch run. What was his name?
From Double-A. I can't remember.
And I felt so bad for this kid because he finally got the call. He's gotten his opportunity to be in Major League Baseball. He's on a Major League roster. He's sitting in a dugout, and yet the only thing he did in the month and a half that he was up with the Mets is pinch run. And I was like, oh, my God, this is terrible. Why is this kid being tortured like this?
I did remember one at bat, and I was shocked because it went to extra innings.
And
they had no choice, but they had they had to hit him for a pitcher.
Yeah.
Being allowed to go off the bench. But I mean, I hear you, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. So, what do you think the Mets, or we should say Brody Van Wagenen, should do this season in order to improve this ball club? Do you think that are there any particular moves you would like him to make or signings that you like to make? Because
Yeah.
quite frankly, I don't think he's got enough in a farm system to do any trades.
Right.
Because we all remember there was some rumors about Starling Marte, the center fielder in Pittsburgh. I really don't believe he's a center fielder. I think he's more of a left fielder than anything else.
Right. Yeah.
But in order to make that deal, there was rumors that the Mets would have to deal a roster player. And we're not talking about roster player in the sense of J.D. Davis or Dom Smith.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about a roster player like a Michael Conforto or Brandon Nimmo.
Right.
And that is the only thing that, Brody Van Wagenen at this point has of any value to trade. So the Mets are going to have to suck it up. If they're going to improve this ball club, I feel that they're going to have to go and spend the money and sign a free agent, because at least you're spending money and you're not losing players. I mean, our farm system is already depleted as it is. The prospects, if you want to call them prospects, Jimenez, they're saying that he's supposed to be up in 2020, possibly 2021. I don't see that happening because you have Rosario at shortstop.
Right.
He's blocking him. He's a prospect that you can move, that you can add to a trade to get someone here. But again, how much value does Jimenez really have?
Right.
What are some of your thoughts, and what are some of the players you like the Mets to pursue?
The first guy that I would pursue, because I think he's cheap, is, you mentioned it before, is Blake Treinen. I mean, we got to where we got last year, not necessarily because of our hitting. Could we have improved our hitting? Sure. First half of the year. But, I mean, it's well documented that the Mets have actually had the worst ninth inning pitching performance in the history of baseball. A history that goes back 100+ years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so to me, you have to start with the bullpen. I mean, you could talk all you want about, needing a center fielder, a backup catcher, which I still think we need a center fielder. I think, despite, signing like Merznick, Thomas Nito, to me, is just like another Kevin Plawecki.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just hot garbage. That's not the answer. But at the same time, though, more than anything, baseball in 2020, 2019, 2018, it's all about bullpens. Because, yes, our starters don't go as long as they used to, even though we're a team that, compared to others, our starting pitchers go deeper in games because of the quality that we've had in our rotation the last couple of years. We have to beef up our bullpen. Some of these games that we blew last year, they were just so devastating. I mean, the game in L.A., a couple of games in Philadelphia.
The game in Washington.
Up, 8 runs, 9 runs, whatever it was?
6 runs.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
like,
runs.
It's just, you can't lose games like that. And that right there is a difference in making the playoffs and not making the playoffs. And, you can't let the DeGrom outings go by the wasteboard where, we're blowing games because of our bullpen. Granted, a lot of them are also because we're not scoring any runs for whatever reason when DeGrom pitches. But we need to be able to secure the games that we should win. So Treinen would be atop my list. I think that Dylan Betances is another obvious choice. Not sure what a contract would look like. The Phillies certainly have been linked to him because of Joe Girardi. That being said, you might be able to get him a little cheaper than perhaps we could envision. Maybe not if we're getting to a bidding war. But you have to get protection also out there for Diaz and for Familia. Justin Wilson, I mean, he pitched well last year, and I like Justin Wilson, especially from the left side. But, I mean, he's a guy where, even though he can pitch well versus righties, he's a guy that I really want to have for the matchups versus lefty,
right,
deep in the game, for guys like a Bryce Harper and whatnot, and a Freddie Freeman. And so we need to make sure that we have that protection late in games. So I think those two guys are really where it starts. I also wanted, and especially with getting Merznick, I think that we're probably going to be done in center field. You're going to see a Merznick and Nimmo Platoon in center field.
Mm-hmm.
But I really also wanted Kevin Pilar because I think defensively he's better than Merznick. He has some postseason experience like Merznick does. And I just think it's someone that we didn't have to, despite not giving up very much for Merznick. Don't think we haven't we didn't have to give anything for Pilar. And I think that Pilar is also a better hitter.
Yeah.
So I think those are three guys like right away that really come to mind. More than anything, I don't see the Mets really going out and getting any of these bigger free agents. I mean, I'd love to, but also a part of me is really itching at the bit where, look, center field is going to be a gap, not only this year, but also next year. Let that newfound money come in and let's go out and let's go get some Mookie Betts, man. Because that's going to be the new reality for the Mets. I just don't want Brody to screw up too badly this offseason more than anything. I'd almost rather him do nothing than do anything because I don't trust Brody Van Wagenen. And that's what a lot of fans have even told us as well through Mets Fans United is, look, like no one seems to trust him. He hasn't done anything to prove that he should be trusted. And, no one really likes the job that he's done. I mean, you can't really put your, he doesn't really have that one move. If you want to count JD Davis, fine. But he doesn't really have that one move that is like, that's the era of Brody Van Wagenen yet,
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all that Brody Van Wagenen really has is that J.D. Davis trade that he made last year. J.D. Davis was a player that came from Houston, who I'm not sure if a lot of people know, but he was scouted as being a minor league hitter. That a lot of people in the league didn't see him as being a Major League Baseball hitter against Major League Baseball pitching, and obviously he came here. For many reasons, he played a lot because of the fact of the injuries with the outfield and so on and so forth. He got a chance to play and he got a chance to prove himself. I mean, he had a tremendous second half last year. I think he hit 335. I think he was third. I think he was third in the league in hitting at 335. It was just one point behind Anthony Rendon in the second half. He hit 336. He hit 20+ home runs. I would have liked to see, his runs batted in a bit higher than I think it was 50-something.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously that just goes to show you that a lot of his home runs were solos, and a lot of the doubles that he hit were with one guy on. But either which way, he did what he needed to do to prove himself.
Yeah.
And I feel that I want him to be part of this club. But again, going back to is he a fit? A lot of scouts are saying right now that he might not be a National League player. He might be more suited for the American League where he can go in DH.
Right.
Well, then if that's the case, then you might want to stick on, hold on to him for another season, or at least until the trade deadline. Let him be a pinch hitter and occasional starter here and there. Let him get his 150, 200 at bats, hopefully by the All-Star break, and maybe you could potentially get a little more value out of him at the All-Star break, at the trade deadline, than you would in the off season. But again, there's a lot of nice pieces to this team, and like I agree with you, the Mets aren't going to do a lot. They are going to go and hopefully try and improve this bullpen because Familia last year was supposed to be the insurance for Diaz.
Right.
That was the reason why he was brought in here because. If Diaz gets hurt, you have Familia who's capable of closing games.
Right.
Both of them struggled right off the bat, and it was painful to watch at times. Every time they came into the game, it was painful to watch.
Oh yeah.
The game against the Dodgers, the Phillies, the Nationals, and so many others. That they just blew, and it wasn't just them. You got to look at the likes of Tyler Bachelor.
Do we have to?
Gagnon. Dude, you do not understand. I was constantly on Twitter and saying, please get rid of these freaking guys. Please stop calling upon these guys. I know you have injuries, but you know what? These guys have come up and they've got 7-point-something ERAs. How about you bring something else up? Maybe we would rather look at somebody else because Bachelor and Gagnon were two of the biggest culprits out of that bullpen. More, if not more so than Diaz and Familia because they just couldn't handle major league hitting at all. It was just disgusting.
And they're all terrible. They're all terrible.
Oh.
I mean, but not for anything though. But I think that where we're at with the Mets right now, and I'm sorry, I just really got to get this out because I really don't want to forget to make this point. Is I think where we're at right now is for those that have been around in the mid 80s. I think we're at the point right now where it's like 1984.
Mm.
I think that we need to find more than anything. We have a lot of nice pieces, right? That you just mentioned, but we don't have really. Yeah, we have Alonso, but we don't have those centerpiece type of players. Alonso just kind of fitting into that mold. Rosario's nice. Mcneil is good, but I'm still kind of up in the air with Mcneil. I know I might get some slack for that, but I just kind of want to see more out of Mcneil. I mean, he had an amazing year last year. Hitting over 320, over 25 home runs. I mean, the dude is performed amazing. That's gonna be a tough year to do again as well as Alonso, but we need to get the Carter and the Hernandez type pieces, especially behind the dish. We have to get those centerpiece type of players, and that's really what I think this team is missing. We're a bunch of nice pieces, and the nice pieces, they fit into the sum nicely, but we don't have that Piazza piece, that piece that really puts us over the top.
Right.
Alonso's great, but there's just something missing from this team. Where home runs, yeah, they're not what they used to be. Sure, getting to 50 is still a huge accomplishment, and not trying to at all diminish the year that Alonso had, because it was an awesome year. But the year that we get like the 330, 35, 40 home run hitter, that really drives fear in the other bullpens, game plan. That's what I think that we need offensively. And I mean, not for anything too, but especially now with Wheeler, leaving, is now put up or shut up time for a one Noah Syndergaard. If he wants to get paid, and he's going to be getting paid, he's going to be getting paid in arbitration. What you were saying before, somewhere in a range of 12 to 13 million, which for Syndergaard, that's given his year was subpar, and that might be kind of best. That's a lot of money for Syndergaard, and Syndergaard has to really put up or shut up. If he wants to go out and make that Wheeler money, if he wants to be that guy who yaps a lot on Twitter, dude, it's time to do it on the field, man.
Yep, I agree.
What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree about Syndergaard, and I agree with you with not having that centerpiece player that that most championship teams have. I mean, let's look at the championship teams of the 90s of the Yankees when they had Bernie Williams and Posada and Pettit and all. I mean, that was a team that had a lot of chemistry. And that's the one thing that the Mets have lacked for so many years is team chemistry.
Yep.
And for some reason, regardless of who is the general manager and leading this ball club and building this ball club, they have never been capable of putting together a team that gels together.
Right.
It's a team. It's always been a team where let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. We're tired of waiting. I don't want to wait and see anymore. I want results on the field. I want a product on the field that I can be proud of. I want to be able to take my kids to the ball game. I don't go to the games because there's nothing there to go see. Like you said before, I used to get the 14 game package every year. I stopped doing that because you know what am I throwing my money away for? Most of the time I was giving those tickets away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to go to the game. I don't want to go look at this. I'll watch it if anything. I'll just watch it on TV. But that's the thing with the New York Mets. But now, again, we have the nucleus. We have what is the beginning of something great.
Yep.
And 2020 is right around the corner. And yet we don't have that centerpiece that you just mentioned. We're not going to get it. I was hoping that centerpiece was going to be a healthy NSS, but that's obviously not going to happen.
Right.
I still think that the Mets still need that one big bat in the lineup to make this, to protect Alonso.
Mm-hmm.
Mcneil had a tremendous year in the first half. He was hitting over 330. In the second half, his average dipped a bit because he was hitting for more power. Which player would I rather see? Do I want to see the 330 Mcneil? Do I want to see the 300 Mcneil with the 20-something home runs? I'm not really quite sure exactly which one I want to see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to see which player is going to show up for 2020 because that was a trend that that changed after the All-Star break with Mcneil.
Yeah.
So that was kind of strange to me because I was like, well, this kid hit 6 home runs in the first half of the season. He's got 20
Right.
in the second half. What's going on here? How did that
Yeah.
happen? J.D. Davis, too. I mean, he had a pretty decent first half, and then in the second half he exploded. He hit 370 in the second half of the season. Like, where did that come from?
Well, I can tell you a little bit about J.D. Davis. J.D. Davis happened because a lot of Met fans like myself, we were screaming in the first half for J.D. Davis to get more at-bats.
Right.
And
Rightfully so.
Right. And I think with anything that – I'm sorry. I had another call come in. I wasn't sure if I got that on the camera. But, like with J.D. Davis, he was getting more regular at-bats. And, I mean, if you want guys to develop, you need guys like that to develop, which is what you were saying before, is I don't think that he should be getting 150 at-bats or 200 at-bats before the trade deadline. He has to play. He's going to be here, and he's going to be on our team. The guy has to play because we got to see what he's capable of doing. Because you know what? Maybe he is that centerpiece player. I mean, do we know that he's not? I mean, I'm not 100% positive that he's not. I mean, he had in limited at bats last year. He put up some pretty good power numbers.
Yeah.
He did it 326, like you said, And so I think that I want to see more J.D. Davis. I don't want to see him sitting on the bench at all. The 150, 200 at bats. That guy has to play. So maybe he is already here and we don't know it. Do I think it's J.D. Davis? Probably not, but I'm not sure about that. And I don't think that we have much else to lose this year because, unfortunately, I think this year is more of a, unfortunately, and I hate to say it in December now, but kind of a wasteful year because I think that's going to be a completely different team when we go in and bring more guys in next offseason. So I think that this year is all about seeing what we got. Unfortunately, that means another wasted year for Jacob deGrom because he's not going to get any younger. And I think that's a major problem that we have.
Right.
We have an ace, and we have a short window with deGrom after, especially this year, and he's going to be making a lot of money, and rightfully so. But we have to get guys on his team that can be that centerpiece. And I think another big point is what you were saying before. What the difference between obviously the championship players is obviously stark, but besides that, what all championship teams seem to have is they have that prototypical leadoff guy, that prototypical number 2 guy, that 3 guy, 4 guy. One guy in the team chemistry, it develops and it comes from is compliments. Is the leadoff guy comes up and compliments, they kind of get the table started. Kind of like that Lance Johnson of the world from a name from the past.
Right.
And the number 2 hitter, they play off the leadoff hitter and this chemistry that's built that way. And each part of the lineup, each guy is strategically put in the lineup somewhere in the order because they strategically complement one another. The Mets don't have that. They just kind of throw, players around, whether or not it's in a 2-hole or 4-hole or 5-hole. I mean, you saw that even last year with Alonso. He hits second, he hits third, he hits fourth. Put him somewhere and leave him there.
Yeah, exactly.
And even with Michael Conforto, it's the same thing. Like with Conforto. And I mean, to me, Conforto seems to be kind of that guy on the Mets, and at least people I speak to with, and I'd be kind of interested to know what you would hear or what you feel. But a lot of Met fans I speak to, they're kind of divided on Michael Conforto. Is he this guy who is going to put 30 homers, knocking 100, hit maybe 270? I don't think he's going to be hitting 290 like we originally thought he would when he first came up. Or is he that Kevin McReynolds kind of player who is quiet, not really a leader, he has a strong arm, but yeah, he's going to hit 260, 22 and maybe 75, 80. Who is this Michael Conforto? Because it's getting kind of time where we don't really know who Michael Conforto is, given the injuries that he's had in the past with his shoulder. What is your thoughts on Michael Conforto? Because, to me, I don't really know.
I myself am up in the air with Michael Conforto as well. We all remember how Michael Conforto came up. He was going to be the superstar, future star, right fielder, whatever the case. Mm-hmm. He was going to be this 300 hitter. Who was going to hit, he was going to hit for power and drive in runs. We haven't seen that. But what we have seen out of Michael Conforto is a slight, increase. Or his numbers are. He's producing. He's produced more and more every year. If you look at his numbers, his home runs have gone up. His RBIs have gone up. His total bases have gone up. his average is not the 300s that we were expecting, because that's what we were believed to that he was going to be this 300 hitter. We haven't seen it, but I would absolutely rather have Michael Conforto at 265, 270, hitting 32 home runs and just about 100 RBIs every year. I'd be happy with that. That's fine by me. That would be Michael Conforto for me. I don't see Michael Conforto as a 40 home run, 120 RBI guy. I just don't see it. As far as leadership is concerned, I hear different things about Michael Conforto. There's people that say that he is a leader in the clubhouse. You know, that he does express his feelings to his team when it needs to be done. Some people say he's very quiet and very to himself. I don't know who to believe, but that's the Michael Conforto I've come to expect now, because it's, forget the player that they made you think he was going to be. He's the player of what you see now. But the good thing about Michael Conforto is the fact that his numbers have been going up slightly. I'm not saying that they've gone out of control where he went from 10 home runs to 30. I mean, his home run production has gone up. His RBI production has gone up. His average has stayed where it is. I don't know, it was 260, I think, last year, somewhere in that vicinity.
Yeah, 257, and the year before that it was 243.
Yeah. See, 243 for me is a bit concerning. I like to see it more in the 270, 275 average. I don't like to see 250. But this is where baseball is right now.
It is.
They don't care about average anymore. Average is a number of the past. Now it's home runs, RBIs, WAR, and all these crazy numbers that they come up with these days. It's not about batting average anymore. Batting average is a thing of the past. So that's why
it's more about on base percentage, actually.
On
his on base percentage, last year was 363. Year before there was 350, and in 2017, which was his All-Star year, 384. Now, if we're going to get that 384 on base percentage version of Michael Conforto, then I could live with that. I mean, that's when he actually hit. 279, and to your point, that's really like where I see him really being, not the type of hitter that we've seen in the last 2 years. And I mean, he hit 27 homers, knocked in 68 RBIs, and we've seen a big increase from the 68 RBIs, where he hit 82 RBIs and 92 RBIs the last 2 years. And we've seen a slight uptick in his homers from 27 in his All-Star year to 28, and now to 33.
And that was a career, that's a career year in home runs for him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I mean, that's the Conforto you're gonna have. I mean, I don't see Conforto being anything more than that. Do we wish that he would have been that superstar player that we had envisioned him being? You're not gonna get that. It's just not going to happen. But is he a player that belongs here? Absolutely. I think Michael Conforto is definitely a guy that needs to be here. He's a good player. He's a good right fielder. He can also play the other two positions in the outfield. And you can't go wrong with them. And
let me tell you, he's also really streaky though too. He's really streaky.
He
goes through times where he can't hit the ball in the ocean. There's other times where you can't get the guy out. So I mean, a little bit.
That's been the case with the Mets. That's been the case with the Mets up and down the lineup. I mean, let's look at the Mets the last few years. I mean, losing seasons. When did you ever see the whole entire Mets lineup, except for the second half last year where they did very well? When did you see the Mets ever hit as a team? There was always that one or two players in the lineup that would carry the team offensively, and that's the reason why you have guys like DeGrom who can go out and pitch 9 innings of 1-run ball and still lose a game.
Exactly. Yeah, because they're consistently inconsistent. I mean, the last time you've seen the Mets really hit as a team, they've all been on the same page. I wouldn't even say 2016. I'd really say, down the stretch in 2015. I mean, that's really when they did. I mean, when he had Murphy and Duda, really carried the team with, like with Cespedes. That's really when, the last time that we really saw the team really hitting on all strides.
Yeah, but even in 2015, after the trade deadline when we acquired Yoenis Cespedes, I mean. You could agree with me or not, but Yoenis Cespedes carried that offense all the way through to the World Series. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. Like when they made the deal for Yoenis Cespedes, I was like, scratch my head. I was like, you know what? This might be a pretty good deal here. This might be the guy that we need. And sure enough, the guy just carried he just put the sack on his back, and he said, "Let's go. We're heading to the World Series," and he carried us all the way over there. But again, there were times when there was just more than Yoenis Cespedes, but Yoenis Cespedes was the key player in that drive to the World Series.
And I think that was obviously a great year to have, but I mean, I think that year actually kind of set us back though, ultimately in the long run.
Right.
Just for the fact that I personally, and again, this is from a lot of people say, I just happen to agree with it. I think we just got really lucky that we all started hitting at the same time. Cespedes was unbelievable, and you knew that wasn't going to continue on. And I think that ultimately, that prevented us from really, and this is really the Mets, and this is, again, it brings you back to the Wilpons, really making that extra move, really going for it in 2016. That was our time that we could have just gone for it, had a big offseason, but instead just settling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of been the perception of the fan base. And really, I think what got Mets fans United starting and got us really kicked off was just tired of how this team is being ran. So, I mean, there's a lot of good times, I think, to come ahead without the Wilpons. I mean, to hear the whole Kaz Matsui story, I'm not sure whether you've heard that or not.
Yeah, I've heard it.
But with Kaz Matsui and then demanding that he play a game in spring training because it's on TV and they wanted the fans to be excited. I mean, that's moronic.
Yeah,
that's just stupid.
But that's Jeff Wilpon for you.
Yeah, that's Jeff Wilpon, and hence why we're getting sold is because one of the family members were like, "You got to be kidding me! This is, I think it was another brother Jeff had, or
Bruce,
something like that, or
Bruce Wilpon.
Yeah,
his brother, his younger brother.
Right, and it's like you can't believe the stupidity and how the team's being ran.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, to your point, I mean, I'm just, I'm not overly optimistic in the least bit where this team's going this year. I think that there's a lot of gaps. I think that, Conforto, like we said, we know somewhat what to expect from him. But, I mean, we just got to, just don't have Brody just blow things up too much. Don't go out, be too creative. Don't try and, don't bring guys on for long-term contracts. We are having contracts flying off the book next year. Not like it may matter, with our new owner. But my point is, though, that just don't screw things up. Leave our prospects alone so we can have them as trade chips. Don't trade Jimenez. I don't trust Ben Wagenen. A lot of Met fans don't trust him. Let's not even, to me, I don't want to go for it this year because we're not going to be fully on board. And I got into a lot of debates before Ben Wagenen came in here. Or when he first came in here, is what direction should we go? Personally, I'm tired of the prolonged losing. I mean, just like you are, just like all fans are. I'm not about that. I don't care. I personally don't care if it takes not winning one game in the next 5 years at worst case scenario. I'm cool with that if we get the Wilpons out. Because to me, I want to see a prolonged winner. I don't want to see the 1 year being good and then 8 crummy years and then catch a lightning in a bottle again. Just don't want to see it. So to me, I would be patient this year and just understand that fans that we're going to be a team that's on the rise. We have a new ownership. And I mean, that's something that the Knicks, that the Jets, the Giants, a lot of New York teams are very envious on right now because it's something that, like what you were saying, I want to take my kids to a game and be proud of it. I want to be able to have a ticket plan. I used to have a ticket plan too. Other guys from Mets Fans United even on season tickets all got rid of them because of the direction of the Mets. We want to be able to go out and be able to spend money on the team as fans and see that being reciprocated back from ownership.
Right.
So to me, I think that there's a lot of great times ahead for the Mets. Just probably not this year.
Right. No, I totally agree. But again, we might hit that lightning in a bottle this year. I pretty much the way I look at it is the team is pretty much set for next season. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of talks about Ramos, being dealt. That's not going to happen. He's going to be stuck at behind the plate. You lose Wheeler to the Phillies. I'm sure. Hopefully the Mets will do something in order to acquire a Rick Porcello or a Dallas Keuchel, or even if you really want to go and spend some money, how about the dude from the Dodgers, Ryu?
Yeah, well,
I mean, I don't know
they
how
keep
much.
dreaming about spending money.
I mean, that's about spending money, but I'm just saying,
Yeah,
you know, you're going to have to replace that, whether or not you go into the bullpen and do that with either Seth Lugo or Robert Gazelman.
yeah.
I think ultimately that would be a big mistake because
Hmm.
as much as Seth Lugo wants to be a starter, and I'm pretty sure Robert Gazelman wants to be a starter as well,
Right.
their strengths right now for what the team needs
Hmm.
is them being in the bullpen.
Hmm.
Go and get a fourth or fifth starter, and put him and apply him into the rotation for this one season, and then worry about it next year.
Hmm.
Rick Porcello is fine by me. I mean, that all depends on how much money he's going to cost. Again, we talked about the
Right.
fact that there are about 6 or 7 players that are arbitration eligible this year that probably will see some big increases, pushing the team salary to the luxury tax threshold.
Yeah.
That's going to be a problem. Now, whether or not the Mets, and Brody Van Wagenen do anything about improving the bullpen, they brought, I'm pretty sure you heard they brought back Brad Brock.
Yeah.
That's not going to do it for me. I mean,
No.
he was okay. I mean, he was a player that was released last season. And he was picked up off
Hmm.
waivers. He gets a 1-year deal. No, actually, he's got a 1-year deal, and then he's got a player. I'm surprised they gave him a player option and not a team option for
Right.
2021. He gets, I think, $850,000 this year, and he's getting, I think,
About that.
1.25 million for the following season.
Hmm.
It's an okay signing, whatever the case may be. Hopefully, he won't take that player option and decide he wants to become a free agent, unless, of course, he has a good season. We don't know. But the biggest questions are going to be, Edwin Diaz, Jarius Familia in the bullpen. If you get Robert Gazelman, Seth Lugo, and the Justin Wilson that you got this past season, and you add an improved Diaz and Familia, there's a good reason why the Mets could be very successful in 2020. But again, that's a big question mark. Are they going to turn their season? Are they going to turn it around for 2020? We don't know that yet. We're hoping that 2019 was just, a fluke, and it was just a bad season for the both of them, and hopefully they come back and do something better. That's what the Mets are going to heavily rely on, is that bullpen, because
Right.
you made the investment with Jacob deGrom. He's making a ton of money, and they're not going to want him to, they're not going to want to send him out there to do 7, 8, 9 innings every time out. Because
Hmm.
how the Wilpons are. They want to protect their investment, and they don't want them to get hurt. If they get hurt, then they lose on the investment. Not that insurance wouldn't pay for that investment, at least 75 to 80%.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is I think all teams across baseball are protecting the big investments and not allowing these players to
Hmm.
perform up to their capabilities.
Hmm.
I think Jacob deGrom can go out there and pitch 9 innings every day if he kept his pitch count down. I mean,
Yeah.
that can go for any pitcher in baseball. It could be, the fifth starter on whatever team you want to name. But
Hmm.
that's what we're looking at. But
Yeah.
I think that Marisnik was a nice addition. I only see him as a fourth outfielder.
Yep.
How Marisnik is going to change the whole landscape of the outfield is it remains to be seen. You know that Conforto and Nimmo are going to play almost every day, or
Right.
at least every day. What happens with J.D. Davis if Marisnik is in center field every day? I don't see him as an outfielder every day. There's a good chance that he might platoon with somebody at center field. You mentioned before that he might platoon with Nimmo, so that J.D. Davis can get some time out in left field. But then you also got to think
Right.
about, well, if you don't move Dom Smith, what are you going to do with Dom Smith? He's going to have to get some playing time as well. So, I mean, there are a lot of question marks. But I feel good about the team if the bullpen performs up to its capability in 2020. If the bullpen fails like they did in 2019, it's going to be another long season. That's just the way I look at it.
That's the magic question. But I mean, is the bullpen? But another concerning thing is that we haven't even mentioned yet is I think the Mets starting rotation missed 4 or 5 starts last year. I mean, that's really amazing if you think about it, especially
Yeah.
given the past track record for injuries.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Are they going to hold up again in 2020?
Right. Yeah. And you're going to see these guys that you and I both don't want to see out there.
Well, Chris Flexen is gone.
Huh?
Chris Flexen, I think, just signed a deal with the Japanese team, I think, or something. Right. So he's gone.
Yeah, well, he's gone. But, I mean, maybe we see Mazza pitch. I mean, what's your thoughts on seeing Mazza go out there every fifth day if
no, thank you.
Syndergaard gets hurt, man?
No, thank you.
Right, that's what I mean.
You got to get some depth.
We need to have some depth in the rotation.
Walter Lockett isn't going to get it done either.
He's not going to get it done either, no. So that's where I'm concerned. So, I mean, with all due respect, you're saying that you think we'll have a good year if our relievers hold up.
What about our starting rotation? No, I totally
our rotation
understand.
has to hold up
too. It's a good point.
Yeah, so, I mean, we don't have that depth down in the minors either. We don't have the depth anywhere. And a part of that comes with, hey, look, like, to your point, leaving Gizelman and leaving Lugo in our bullpen, and therefore maybe signing someone else in our bullpen and signing another guy in our rotation. So this way, if an injury pops up, we're getting an extra guy or two in our bullpen, maybe we can move a Gizelman, maybe we can move a Lugo into our rotation.
Right.
And personally, I would have Lugo as really our sixth starter, say. Because, I mean, as much as I like Lugo, and he had an amazing year. I mean, look at the year that Lugo had like last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like one for the Met record books. I mean, he was dominant last year. I mean, it was only 2 or 3 appearances where he really didn't do well. But, I mean, he had a great season. But at the same time, though, not having him available sometimes and having to put Diaz in a game, it's just like the self-inflicted wound of just like bashing your head into the wall when you knew he wasn't going to get it done. So to have Lugo not be able to come in, in back-to-back games or pitch, 2 out of 3 games, to me, I mean, that's a tough thing to ask, out of your bullpen to kind of get around. And it's also, it puts your manager, and I mean, look, I'm not one for Mickey Callaway. I mean, Mickey Mouse, I thought did a horrible job, but I mean, he was also backed into a corner a few times with the unavailability of Seth Lugo. So that's why I would really kind of have him as maybe our 6th starter. And I'd really be going after more than anything, bullpen, and more bullpen. And I think also you don't have to spend to the same degree, I think, on bullpen guys as you do on starting rotation guys. I'm not talking about the upper echelon relievers or the upper echelon starting pitchers. I'm talking about the back end rotation guys. Like a 6th, 7th inning guy in a bullpen. You could probably get a little cheaper than you can for like a 4-starter, say. So I think that kind of fits into where we're at, in where I believe we're at about the projection is about $175 million payroll, with about $13 to $18 million to work with, this offseason minus whatever Marisnik got, or what he's going to make this year, which I don't think is much. So I think that we need to be very judicious on where we're spending the money, specifically be able to do that in a bullpen more than anything.
I completely agree. Definitely bullpen, and more bullpen. The more depth you have, the better the chance of using, a Gizelman or a Lugo in the starting rotation in case of injury. I totally agree. It's a good point. As far as the remainder of the team is concerned, I mean, we talked. You mentioned Mookie Betts earlier in the show, and I tell you that would be an amazing addition to this team. We know it's not going to happen this year. Maybe it'll happen, when he becomes a free agent.
Right.
And Cohen has, finalized his deal to take the majority ownership of the Mets, and maybe, something can be worked out where Mookie Betts would want to play here in New York and want to play with the, the orange and blue. But, that's still he still has another season left before he becomes a free agent, right?
Yeah, he does.
So, I mean, there's still a lot of things up in the air right now as far as what Boston wants to do with Mookie Betts. They're not sure if they're going to trade him now. They're going to trade him at the trade deadline. They just know that they can't afford to keep him because of the fact that, they win a World Series and then they just came crashing down the season after that, after winning 108 games the year before. So I mean, there's a lot of things that's going to happen with Boston this year. But Mookie Betts would have been a nice addition again if you didn't trade for Cano and Diaz last year, and you had that Jared Kelenic.
Correct.
maybe we're talking about a possible deal here with Boston for Mookie Betts, because I tell you, I've been following Jared Kelenic, and he's amazing, dude.
Torture yourself.
What's
following
that?
him?
I'm sorry?
You're going to torture yourself doing that. You're going to torture yourself following him because he's going to be a player, and but that's what Met fans do. We like to torture ourselves.
It's amazing. I mean, like I said before, I liked the deal when they first made it. I wish Jared Kelenic wouldn't have been part of that deal. I was hoping that they'd hang on to him. I know he was just a single A player, and he's still years away from contributing to the New York Mets. But at the time,
right.
You drafted him so high, and teams are calling and asking for him, and up until that point, you were saying no, 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 and no. And then why did you say yes for Cano and Diaz? I don't know, but that's going to be a trade we're going to have to remember for many years to come, especially as long as Cano is still on this roster. But just to finalize on things, there's still a lot of work for these Mets to do. Brodie Van Wagenen has a lot of work. I'm curious to see what he's going to do at the GM meetings, the winter meetings in San Diego this week, starting tomorrow. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything stupid to the point where it hurts the current roster. And I'm talking about possibly trading roster players to get somebody else's junk in here, like a Braun, or I wouldn't mind having Hader, but don't trade. It's not necessary to bring back Braun if you want to trade for Hader. It's just I don't want to see that happen. But
what about this?
Go ahead.
What about getting Hader and not taking on Braun, but taking on instead the contract of Lorenzo Cain?
Now we're talking. Lorenzo Cain is a pretty nice player. I was hoping that the Mets would sign him last year. What was he, a free agent last year? I think he signed last year with Milwaukee.
Correct.
I thought that would have been a nice signing, but again, the Wilpons don't want to spend any money, and he went elsewhere. I don't even think the Mets ever even made an attempt to even speak to his representatives as far as what he was looking for, as as far as a contract was concerned. I don't even think they made an attempt. Same thing with Zack Wheeler. I mean, Zack Wheeler, he made his rounds. He got a deal from the Phillies. From what I understand, he was offered more money from Chicago, but because his wife is from New Jersey, he felt he wanted to be closer to the East Coast, so he
wants to come back to us too.
He did.
He wanted to be on us.
But that was going to be my next point. He came around. Yeah. His agent came around to the Mets and said, this is the offer we just got from Philly. You want to match it, or you want to do better? And Brodie Van Wagenen said, see you later.
Right, exactly.
Never made an offer.
Nope.
I don't want to hear stories that we made offers to Wheeler during the season. They were way past that, because the Mets had their opportunities to sign Wheeler to an extension, and they just didn't get it done because of the fact that they wanted to wait and see what Wheeler would do in 2020, and now it cost them. Did Wheeler get a lot more money than he should have? Maybe. $118 million over 5 years, but you know what? There was a team out there that was generous enough to make him that kind of offer. They wanted him that bad. Obviously, the Mets didn't want him bad enough, and now they're gonna have to fill that position in the rotation with either internally or externally. We don't know what's going to happen, but that's the way it's going to be. I mean, everything is going to rely a lot on the bullpen and the starting rotation. We have to hold our breaths and hope that everybody stays healthy. Like you mentioned before, 2019 was an incredible year for the starting rotation, where they only missed, 5 games last year?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 games.
That's sick. You never have that happen. How many years did we sit in front of our TVs and watch, and our pitchers were, not even one pitcher in a rotation, but multiple pitchers in our rotation would be out with an injury, and you had to dig into the minors, and the rest of the story with that. You know how that went. It doesn't usually go well, but 2020, I was hoping was going to be a good year, but then then they started talking about the arbitration figures with all the players. I think there's like 6 or 7 players that are arbitration eligible, and then you started hearing about the increases they were going to get, and then you start hearing the fact that they're going to be pushing towards the luxury threshold.
Right.
As soon as I start hearing that, I'm like, okay, well, the season's over. Well, we're not going to get anybody.
Exactly.
Because that's who the Wilpons are. That's how they roll, and they're not going to put money into this team. And now we're hoping within the next couple of years that Steve Cohen will gradually start increasing the payroll for the New York Mets. Whether or not they go over the luxury tax threshold is going to be a good thing. I guess we'll eventually find out, but I'm seeing a bright future for the Mets. When exactly this deal is going to get done with Cohen, we're not exactly sure. It might be already done, but they haven't announced it yet. I know there's an announcement made that he's going to take 80% of the team, and when that's going to be finalized, I don't know. I don't like the fact that the Wilpons are going to be sticking around for 5 years. I'm not crazy about that idea, but as you mentioned before, it's his money, his signature is going on the checks. He'll make the final decisions. So I feel better about hearing that as opposed to allowing the Wilpons to just straight up run this club like they want to, because I just don't want it to happen that way. What are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are that the Wilpons are not going to have – it might take a couple of months. It might take to the end of the year of the baseball season of 2020. But my final thoughts are that the conversations that we're having now are going to be drastically different come this time next year. It's going to be about Mookie Betts. It's going to be about George Springer. It's going to be about Trevor Bauer. It's going to be about who are we going to get. And you're going to see a hell of a lot more excitement on Mets Twitter. You're going to see a hell lot of more excitement out of guys like Andy Martino on SNY. You're going to see a hell lot more excitement about Met fans wearing their Mets hats around New York and representing the Mets like the way they should be represented. Wilpons are going to be in name only. They'll be technically the owners, but they're not going to really be the owners. I don't care that the Wilpons are going to be around for 5 years. It's not going to matter. This deal, let me just tell you, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be, but this deal better go through. That's all that I can say, because it's great to know a little more of the insights of the Mets, the stories about the Kazmatsui that we mentioned like before. Some of the other things that have come out this past week inside of the Mets have been very telling as far as the disagreements amongst the families and just the inclination that they want to sell the team have been such a refreshing scent of just something very refreshing that I think is bigger and better than anyone that we can sign this year. The best move that we are going to make this year is going to be no more Wilpons. And that's my final thought.
Awesome. Mark, I want to thank you for coming on the show with me today. I know we went a little over an hour like I had promised. I had said about an hour. We're going close to an hour and a half now. But I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your thoughts and your opinions about the New York Mets, the Wilpons, the front office, the player personnel, and so on and so forth. This was a lot of fun. I hope we can do this again. Maybe next time your buddy can come on with us. That would be great. Mm-hmm. So until the next time, man, I'll catch up with you on Twitter. And hopefully this deal with with Steve Cohen gets done real quick so that we can start talking about how much money we're going to spend next year instead of not signing any players at all.
It's been an absolute
pleasure,
man. You too. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good one. Take care, Mark.
Bye-bye.